Channel 4 recently faced a backlash on social media for giving airtime to Andrew Tate with an hour-and-a-half documentary about him. Let's have a quick look.
Andrew Tate, one of the most beautiful people in the world.
The real story of Andrew Tate. This is like manic look in his eyes, with new insight and revelation.
Fortunately, I was born with a mind that is hard to occupy, and I find everything boring.
The network's feature-length documentary titled I Am Andrew Tate was a behind-the-scenes look at the life of the man who is regarded by some as a role model for masculinity. But Tate's checkered past, I guess, has seen him arrested in Romania for a string of crimes, including rape and people trafficking. He also faced rape claims in the UK a decade ago, although charges were later dropped. Tate has denied all allegations against him. So, is he a healthy influence on young men or a troubling sign of our times? And does he deserve space on our screens? Here to debate, I'm joined by two of the country's finest young political commentators, Chloe Dobbs and Jess Gill. The first question has to be whether this man is, like I said, accused rapist, accused misogynist, accused people trafficker, does he deserve exposure on terrestrial TV?
I think he does, regardless of whether you're pro or anti-Tate. If you're against Tate, then surely you should be glad that he is getting airtime and, say, being exposed. This Channel 4 documentary doesn't really paint him in the best light. It picks out the worst parts of his past. Surely if you don't like him, you'd want that to be exposed. Yeah, fair enough. Do you agree with that? Do you think that let people give them that airtime and they can hang themselves or be judged by their own words? I think there is definitely some truth to that. It's just a shame that Andrew Tate is the only antidote to this society which constantly demonises men. That's a society which basically tells men the only way they can be accepted is if they chop their penises off and call themselves a woman. I think that's why Tate is so essential. But it's a shame. I would more prefer characters like Jordan Peterson be promoted. But unfortunately, they're demonised, so a character like Andrew Tate who says F you to the system is needed. Yeah, so do you think that he's more a symptom of the times as opposed to, like, it wouldn't have worked, that shtick, or I guess actually that's my next question, is do you think it is an act? Because that's what some people will say about him. I think he plays it up. Even on Piers Morgan's show, he said he plays it up. And on Piers Morgan's show, again, he actually showed Piers Morgan up. I think he actually showed that he is someone for the system. Yeah, I may not agree with everything but what he says, but the core tenets of it, of responsibility, ambition, being a man, I think they're generally good things that what we should promote towards men. It's just a shame that someone like Andrew Tate is saying it. I think more people should be saying it and that they shouldn't be afraid to say it, but unfortunately society has gotten to a place where they are. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he's a very intelligent person. Do you think that it's somewhat of an act, or is it coming from a real place? I'm just reading into it myself. It does feel like there's genuine anger there. So I think that, on the question of is it an act, I think that Andrew will often, he can be quite pompous and he'll often exaggerate what he is saying, whereas if you listen to his brother Tristan Tate speaking, he's often, a lot more reserved and a bit more, has a bit more humility. But at the end of the day, I think that there are a couple of messages that they put across to young men, young people in general, that are really powerful and are resonating at a time where I think women are realising that some of the things that feminism has taught them is not really serving them. So, as Jess has said, teaching men how to be real men. I think women are fairly hardwired to want providers and protectors, and feminism has sort of taught men to do the opposite of that, taught men that you should split the bill, get the woman to pay half the bills, whereas the Tate brothers are telling people how to be real men at a time when I feel like men are really becoming quite feminised and becoming very low effort. And then also, I'm a big fan of people being entrepreneurs and people being self-employed, and they are, constantly telling people and teaching people how to, escape the 9 to 5 and do something interesting and ambitious with your life. And sometimes they may sound a little bit like conspiracy theorists, where they say, you're escaping the Matrix, but at the end of the day, I think their core message is helping young men, and there's a reason why so many millions of men around the world follow them. Well, there's a reason why, but, touching upon some of the things you said, yes, he does promote
things like entrepreneurship, but at the same time, other people might say he also is showing people how to con other people. It's not coming from a moral position, and certainly exploiting, whether this was in the finesse of people trafficking or not, that's not, I believe, how women want to be treated. And certainly showing that as an example to young men, and I've got a lot of young men, I've got a lot of kids, and they're all boys, 4 boys and a girl. That's not the message that I really want to send to them. I want them to be strong, but I don't want them to talk about women that way and treat women that way.
Yeah, of course, there's lots of things which I strongly disagree with Andrew Tate on. For example, he promotes hedonism, he promotes sleeping around. I think anyone who calls themselves a conservative should be against these things. It's not good for women, it's not good for men. And I think monogamy, which Andrew Tate is seemingly against, is actually the way forward. But unfortunately, we're not at that level. The same way I want to talk more about what gender roles are, we're stuck in defining what a woman is. I want to talk about that a man should be a man, and it doesn't just mean an adult human male. It means being a provider, being a protector. And I think we're stuck at this position where we need to just say men need to man up, and then we can go towards things like monogamy, being respectful. I know it should be the bare minimum, but unfortunately, a lot of men can't even do that nowadays. You know what? I think a lot of men, controversially, I think a lot of men are actually quite useless, and it's no fault of their own.
I think that's controversial. We've been told that for a long time.
But it's no fault of their own. Society actively puts them down. Society constantly tells them they're useless. And our education system, men are completely falling behind because it's geared towards women. They're told being ambitious, being chivalrous is seen as a negative. So, of course, someone like Andrew Tate, who promotes all these things, who promotes them manning up, taking the responsibility, is seen as a positive.
I guess it's the separating the message from the person and also from his actions. I know that, like I say, I've got a 14-year-old. He's watched those videos. The question is, are they able to separate those different factors to take any positive messaging out there, or are they going to be? Is this how they're going to treat women when they grow up?
Well, one thing I will say is that the Tate brothers have definitely matured over time. I think in the past they were more in favour of, say, sleeping around, but as time has gone on, they've got older and matured. They talk much more about family values and monogamy more these days. And what they are teaching nowadays is to treat women properly by, planning the date, buying flowers, paying for their dinner, holding doors open, holding a chair for them. Simple, gentlemanly things like this that seem to be rare to come across these days.
I agree with everything you've just said.
And those things, surely you'd want to teach your...
But surely there's got to be someone else out there. You guys are young, you've heard of this thing called the internet. That there's got to be someone else out there who manages to provide those messages to younger people to be able to appeal to them without all the toxicity. Do you know of such...
I'd say Jordan Peterson is the closest, but...
I don't know if my kids are going to get into Jordan Peterson.
I don't know. I think a lot of young people actually really love Jordan Peterson. Like, his main audience are young men. But on the Andrew Tate thing, the core knowledge that a lot of people are taking away... Like, I became an Andrew Tate fan just by going through his reels, going through the reels which are promoted on Instagram. Because, again, it's not teaching the more controversial things. Men are just desiring responsibility, being able to be men, pretty much. And unfortunately, Jordan Peterson is one of those. I think there should be more models like that, but unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be. And maybe it's the media going against that. Like, if you look at a lot of mainstream television, like Family Guy, for example, the dad is absolutely useless, and it's really funny, but unfortunately, we need more strong male role models.
Yeah, I mean, would you agree with that? Is he the messiah for that role, or is he setting the way for someone else to come through who actually might not have all of this baggage with them in their personal life and what they've done?
I think inevitably more people will come through. I do think that the tide is starting to turn on the feminism movement, well, the bad parts of it that I've spoken about, and as more and more men are learning and liking Andrew's message and the good parts of Andrew's message, they'll, with social media, you've got so many people making videos and growing a platform for themselves. Inevitably, people will come through. That might just take 1 or 2 years for us to see. We may not get someone as prominent and as famous as Andrew Tate, but I'm sure you'll see lots of different individual voices across social media. I think I couldn't name many people in particular, but I'm starting to see videos like that from young men
coming through.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, something I think you said just about women telling men I mean, for me, that would just be because men, we're simple folk, and maybe what we really need is a woman just saying, "This is what you should do," and then guys will just be like, "That's what my wife does. She's like, behave like this," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool, I'll do that." Because then I don't have to think.
I don't know, I would like men to take more responsibility. Again, they have a role to play. With the sexual revolution, for example, which people like Andrew Tate have exploited, where women are encouraged to sleep around, and they don't like it in the end. So many women feel used and degraded by the sexual revolution, and then men are taking advantage of this by just sleeping around. It doesn't benefit men who don't feel fulfilled in the long term, and same with women. And I think that is the issue with that, and I think it lies with men. I think men do need to take the responsibility. But again, like, society has just paternalised them. They've told them, you don't have to take this responsibility, you can just be your own person. When I think a core tenet of being a man is being a father, is being a provider, is being a brother, is being a husband. But we've seemed to neglected that.
Yeah, I mean, would you agree with that? I mean, it seems like both of you seem very much in sync about this stuff.
Yes and no. So I think that the way that men's behaviour has changed to, in my opinion, being, much more low effort in dating is partly on the men, but also...
Sounds like you've had some pretty bad dates.
Yeah, I have. And partly on the women. So, as Jess has sort of alluded to, women are, sort of giving men access to their bodies, on the first date, basically. If you don't show a man, no, you need to make more effort, you need to provide, you need to pay for dinner, etc., before you can, have commitment from me, have access to my body, then they will put in more effort. So it's partly on women for accepting low standards, and feminism has taught women to, accept men splitting the bill and, sleep around, let men into your bed when you barely even know them. That means that men are getting what they want for a very low price, essentially.
I feel kind of busted here. What I have learnt from both of you is that I'm very glad that I'm old. And that phase of my life is over. Thank you very much.
Young people have to date older to get real men these days.
Oh, no. Well, that's not me.
Not these Gen Zers.
Oh, really? OK, well, thank you. My wife is not watching this, I hope. Thank you very much.
That wasn't aimed at you.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.